knew the most powerful. So we were able to rank from all of these studies some of the those plants that were richest in anthocyanins, but also the ones that were most potent. Let me share with you how we found the most potent. The way that we did that was we did in vitro tests where we have a lining of cells that represent the GI cell wall. And we wanted to see which ones protected that GI lining. And what we found was the most powerful were these two anthocyanins, cyanidin, delphinidin. Let me take a break here and just tell you why we did this study. Why are we looking at the cells that line the GI tract? Well, the reason is because you have, in your GI tract, you're eating all sorts of food, and it's going through this long sort of channel. It's going through the stomach and then sort of the upper intestine, the lower intestine. And it's very important for digesting food and nutrients, right? You know that. But also, as I described, there's all sorts of bacteria in that GI tract. Most of them, a lot of them friendly, some of them unfriendly. By the time you get to sort of the lower colon, that's not stuff that you want anywhere near the beautiful sterile interior of your body, right? Your blood, your tissues. So the GI tract must keep this very separate. There must be a barrier function there. It's called the gastrointestinal barrier function, and it must be tight. It must really be very selectively permeable. Now, to give you an idea, you have these cells look like little villi, and on top of the cells, there are microvilli, which gives it a huge surface area. We're talking about the size of 2 tennis courts. So when you think about it, that huge surface area has to protect your sterile blood and tissue from kind of all of the nasty stuff that is in the GI tract. And there are certain components of bacteria that are called endotoxins. They slough off the bacterial cell wall, things that are called LPS. If your cells, and especially your immune cells, even get a whiff of those nasty endotoxins, then it will absolutely disrupt your metabolism. They cause all sorts of inflammatory reactions, and this is one of the major reasons why our metabolic systems start to go awry. This is a great area to target. So we're finding then that the cyanidin, the delphinidin, are helping to protect and to make sure that that cell wall in the GI tract is nice and tight. We did more studies that showed protection of the GI tract, and you can see here in the black, a high-fat diet causes more of these endotoxins to get through. But if you add anthocyanins, you're more like the control. It's causing the cells of the GI tract to be much more healthy. And one of the ways that it does that is that apparently the anthocyanins help feed the friendly bacteria, and their metabolism actually releases these short-chain fatty acids that are the main energy source for these cells that line the GI tract. It keeps them healthy, keeps them plump, and gives them nice tight junctions so that that 2 tennis court sort of surface area keeps all the bad stuff out and prevents the body from becoming inflamed and affecting the biochemistry of the body. So a lot of the studies that we did focused on how tight is that GI barrier and how healthy are the gut bacteria as a result of these anthocyanins. Here's some more studies that look at glucose metabolism and even beyond some of the things that you would expect. Here's liver health. You see on the left here, this is the control. This is a healthy liver. If you see in this one in the middle, lots of white dots, that means that fat is accumulating in the liver, in the, between those cells. And this is an unhealthy sort of high-fat diet sort of liver. Now you can feed a high-fat diet, but as long as you have anthocyanins here, you can see an amazing protective effect. This looks more like the controls. So the knock-on effect of having a healthy microbiome and a nice, tight, healthy GI tract is huge for the body's overall health. This is the study that I described earlier. And here's another study. So this was actually on healthy college students. And we wanted to see how quickly you can get an effect of healthy anthocyanins in the diet. So this was one bad meal, like a meal where they were forced to eat like a bunch of these nasty hamburgers. It was really hard to finish, really high fat, very unhealthy, a lot of sugar in it. And what we showed was these are the plasma endotoxins, right? So these are the nasty things that are on the bad side of the gut, and measuring how much gets through into the blood. And we see that with the placebo, this big black box means that a lot of these endotoxins got through. But when with this one meal, also anthocyanins were fed to these college students, there was a huge protective effect. And the amount of the endotoxins that got through was much lower. This is a little bit like that resilience chart that I showed you earlier. So doing a glucose tolerance type of test, we see in the presence of anthocyanins, a much faster recovery. That shows really good, resilient metabolic health right there. So then, to summarize, we discovered the right, most potent sort of forms of anthocyanins and the right sources. We did a bunch of studies and showed that they bolster metabolic health in terms of, all those metabolic biomarkers that we talked about, only not just the dashboard of the car, but, more like the 747 dashboard. We see that the mechanism of action is the microflora are healthy. And so then they impact the nice tight junctions of the GI tract, and they prevent the immune cell from being upset and then affecting the entire body's metabolism. And showed that then supports the metabolic health. As I mentioned when I started, this is a fairly new area. Other people are starting to notice, but we have already done 5 studies that have been published in this area. We are off to an amazing start in helping people to understand the importance of metabolic health. Now, I asked right up front, how is your metabolic health, right? So here's the test for you. How do you know how your metabolic health is? Well, it's through looking at the biomarkers of metabolic health, right? How can you tell? Sometimes it's how you feel, but a lot of it's invisible. So you have to look at that dashboard. And so why do we care? Well, maybe that's a whole nother talk, but let's just say if you're in your car and some of those lights are on the dash that say your car needs attention, you may be able to drive it for a while. But if you don't pay attention to those things, you can almost guarantee that you're going to have to pull off to the side of the road before you reach your destination. And we're talking about life and the sources of good health. So I would call my destination meaning living to a good ripe age and having good health all the days of my life. That's the destination that I want. And if we don't take care of these dashboard lights, the dashboard lights of healthy metabolism, we may be pulling up to the side of the road faster than we thought. So, the mechanisms that I talked about are inflammatory balance, the microbiome and the gut health, and also these anthocyanins are very important antioxidants. And the results are they affect your immunity in a very healthy way. That means you don't have an overactive immune system that is upsetting your metabolism. And in the same sort of mechanism, you're actually protecting all of the vital organs, your cardiovascular health, your liver, as I already demonstrated, and these other things. So that's why we should care. And, we're really excited that we have discovered this, basically a super